There's a saying that tells us that when life hands you a lemon, make lemonade. Life handed Louise de Marillac a number of lemons during her lifetime. In 1591, she was born out of wedlock, never to know who her birth mother was. 4 years later, in 1595, Louis de Marillac, her father, who was a widower at the time of her birth, remarried. However, his spouse never accepted Louise into her family. In 1604, Louis de Marillac passed from this world to his eternal reward. And 2 years after that, Louise sensed that she had a call to religious life. However, the community she applied to declined to accept her into their community. Then in 1613, she married. She had one child who had some special needs. However, her husband, who was a good man, great promise in life to be very successful, unfortunately, he died early, after only 13 years of marriage. Life handed Louise de Marillac a number of lemons in her life. However, in 1625, she was ready to, by the grace of God, to make some lemonade. She was ready to make some lemonade because in receiving these lemons, she also was blessed in many extraordinary ways. First of all, she had an excellent education, which helped her develop a strong mind. And secondly, in the midst of dealing with the lemons she received in life, simultaneously she developed some excellent household and management skills. And these were the two tools, a strong mind and wonderful skills, that Louise needed to serve the poor, which is exactly what God had in mind for her. The poor were numerous in 17th century France. As a result of the 30 Years' War, Paris was crammed with the homeless, the destitute, the suffering, the infirm, the handicapped, and many abandoned children. Over 100,000 poor people were crying out for alms on the streets and alleys of Paris. Epidemic after epidemic crashed upon the unsuspecting and a bewildered population. And unfortunately, the government did very little or nothing to help those who were in need. St. Vincent de Paul, however, who was deeply involved in feeding and clothing and housing men and women and children refugees, by the providence of God, was a spiritual director of Louise de Marillac in 1625. At that time in her life, Louise was growing spiritually. She was maturing spiritually because she was integrating her good works with prayer. She was maturing spiritually because whatever situation Louise faced in life, she would always raise the question, what would Jesus do now? And by the grace of God, she acted on the response to that question. She was maturing spiritually because she was letting go of the personal plan she had for life and surrendering to the will of God for her. At this time in her life, Louise de Marillac needed the right spiritual director for herself. And Vincent de Paul was the right spiritual director for her. Vincent de Paul was quick to recognize her intelligence, her spirituality, her excellent household and management skills. So without any hesitation, he encouraged her to get involved with the confraternities of charity, volunteers who reached out to help the economically challenged. Louise experienced deep spiritual satisfaction in serving the poor. So in 1632, she made a retreat, seeking some inner guidance with regard to the next steps she should take in life. And her prayer helped her to understand there was time in her life that she had to get more involved with the sick and the poor. And the result of this was the formation of the Daughters of Charity, a community she formed with Vincent de Paul, were to reach out to help the sick and the poor. And through the guidance of these two extraordinary saints, the Daughters of Charity expanded and flourished. So by March 15th, 1660, when Louise de Marillac was called to her heavenly reward, the scope of the ministry for the Daughters of Charity included hospitals and orphanages and nursing homes and prisons and a battlefield. And Louise de Marillac was so conscientious and so effective in her ministry that in 1960, Pope John the 23rd designated St. Catherine Labouré to be the patroness of the Christian social workers. So today, on the eve of St. Louise's feast, I offer you some suggestions for your prayerful consideration. First of all, sometime today, spend a little bit of serious time in prayer, thanking God for the gift of St. Louise. What a wonderful gift she has been to all of us. Sometime or other in our lives, we all received a lemon or two. St. Louise's example tells us that we have to maintain hope and trust in God to change that lemon into lemonade. Sometime I also ask you to say a rosary and offer up that rosary for our Daughters of Charity, our Sisters of Charity, our Ladies of Charity, all those women who are following the footsteps of St. Louise, that through their ministry and their lives, they'll keep St. Louise's charism and spirit alive in our community and in our world. And sometime this week, make a commitment. Make a commitment to do something beautiful for the poor and for the sick. Visit a homebound. Go to a nursing home and cheer up the people there. Spend some time serving in a soup kitchen. Donate some food to a food pantry, even our own food pantry in the lower level. Food will be given to the poor and the hungry. sometime this week, make a commitment to do something beautiful for the poor and for the sick. But pray also that as a community and as a world, we may repent and seek to promote the sanctity of human life from the moment of conception to the time of natural death, especially by knowing and living the corporal and spiritual works of mercy. And finally, when in our lives, life hands us a lemon, pray that by the grace of God, we search and look for a way to change that lemon right into lemonade, just as Louise de Marillac did. May God be praised.